everybody, all three of you listening. This is episode 1 of Bunsen Burner Recordings. It's actually kind of episode 3. We did this once where we completely lost the episode, then the next one, audio issues, and hopefully this one is one we can actually release. I'm joined by my co-host Fred and Paul. And Paul, I guess this was your pick for what we're talking about this week, so why don't you get us started here?
All right, let's see. It's going to be about a band and their album.
About a girl?
Yep. All right, it's a Mental Home and their album Black Arts. They're, let me get all these facts straight. A Russian band. They play a weird fusion of death and black and doom metal that I would categorize as dark metal. And this album came out in 1998. I think there's siblings in the band, 2 brothers, a drummer and a guitarist. And I picked this album because I haven't heard anyone really talk about this band. I've heard more talk about their first album, Veil, but I feel like Black Art is one where they totally found a hole to, bury themselves in with this sound of just really, really melodic metal. It almost sounds like power metal at times, but with a unique vocal. It's a bit of that lazy vocal that I know you like, Dan. But
Yeah, I love the lazy vocal. It's like Disseltory does that. What else does that? I guess Paradise Lost does that a little bit. That's what this is a lot. This is a lot like Paradise Lost.
I heard
It also reminds me of like Varathron. What's that?
I heard a lot of different things in this. Like it's a very eclectic album. I'm surprised I'd never heard of them before because they were released on the reissue of this anyways. Oh no, that's the original issue. I know that Veil was reissued by the End Records. I guess this was the first issue on the End Records. I was following the End Records back in like the early 2000s, and somehow I never even heard of these guys. And I really like Russian bands from the early and mid 90s. So I'm surprised I never came across these guys. The keyboards in it reminded me of, I don't know if you guys ever heard of an Italian band called Maldoror. It's a really wild occult black metal, but the keyboards are over the top and making it sound very, very mystical, and they kind of had this going in this as well. And it kind of made me think of like a slowed down Dissection at times too, like that melody is in there, but the speed isn't. If that makes any sense.
That made total sense, dude. I was listening to this driving around yesterday. I thought the same thing. I'm like, there's a lot of like Dissection kind of stuff here, and Varathron too. Kind of the like more Celtic Frost side of Varathron.
yeah, with
And
their
it's fun-
palm muting, they were definitely giving me the Greek vibes.
Yeah. And what's funny, you bring up the keyboard player. I was listening to, or I was reading an interview with this guy. His nickname is Maiden. What the hell is his real name?
What?
Something Smirnoff. His nickname is Maiden, and he was in a black metal band he mentions called Rosso Mahar.
Oh,
And,
no way.
Yeah, they're actually pretty cool. I was thinking, Fred, this is probably like up your alley. This type of black metal, the
I
late
have
'90s.
Imperium. I have their first album.
Yeah, that's the one I was listening to. Imperium Tenebrarum.
Yep.
Yeah, this thing like it made me think that Fred would definitely like this. It's like late '90s. It's kind of it's kind of like varied a lot. There's a lot of thrash stuff. There's a lot of like mellow death kind of stuff, and a lot of like weird folky melodies in it.
Yeah.
In the live videos, they're wearing like gas masks, and it's so crazy that like huge crowds in Russia during that time. I don't know, just insane.
Or somehow, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but they're fairly unique from what I remember. I don't pull that album up very, very often,
They are
but
unique.
I do remember liking it quite a bit. Should revisit it more.
Yeah, they're definitely a unique band. With Mental Home, I had heard Veil before, and I have to say with that one, I like Veil better. I was listening to that during the time that I was working on the Mist of Twilight stuff, and there was like kind of an interest in this like mid to late '90s, like kind of death doom, but like gothic. It feels like the gothic death doom stuff like this. Something like what in the hell was the name of that band? Uh, Sierra from Hungary, I think, or from Poland. And Paragon of Beauty. So if you've ever heard of that band, there's something about like these this like era of gothic death metal that it seems like is lost to a lot of people, and a whole lot of people don't really talk about it a lot. But there is some good stuff in there.
Yeah, that's why I think that this album, it's not, there are those like gothic themes with it, but I feel like it's transcending more into like that dark metal uh, aesthetic and sound, just with how this is riff oriented music, but the riffs are just leads, and they have like some sort of rhythm with some the backing guitar, but then the keyboards are providing like a texture and atmosphere to the music, and even the bass sometimes when it's not doing some following along with the rhythm guitar, that's doing its own leads everywhere else too. So it's like this is just like a very lead oriented band, and I feel like I don't really hear that too much with like gothic death doom, where they're kind of more focused on like the funeral doom aspects of it rather than being like really really lead oriented like this shit.
Yeah, and this
Yeah,
somehow reminds me of Belial too. Or maybe it's just the cover. It reminds me of the Wisdom of Darkness album cover.
I just appreciate that the gothic influences were subtle rather than really in your face, because I find when it's too in your face, it can get a bit much very quickly for me.
Oh, you mean like over the top stuff?
Yeah, exactly. And like the one that always gets me was for like the Peaceville Three, obviously, and
Yeah,
how
Anathema.
they'd have a fairly good song going, and then they introduce these like tortured, clean male vocals, and you're just like, oh god, this is corny as hell, and that's always been like a major turnoff for me, and I don't know why they insisted on doing that on a lot of the more gothic themed bands, but this was more tastefully done, I found.
Are you talking about the bands that do that like really over the top '80s Sisters of Mercy type vocals? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, there is a lot of that. I actually kind of like that, even though it is stupid sounding. I still like it. Even the like lazy death metal vocal is kind of stupid, but I for some reason I just love it.
Yeah, there's
I,
points where he does like the talking in it, but it's only on like I think one song, and
yeah, exactly.
it's not like too overbearing, and I think that happens to be the song with the only blast beats on it, Silent Remembrance. I think that's a song, the fourth track.
Hmm.
Yeah, this thing didn't really speed up too much.
No, it just kind of stayed in that odd mid pace, but it wasn't in the bolt thrower way where they're doing the whole kicks everywhere. The drums
Hmm.
are doing something pretty intricate, but keeping a steady beat along the way.
For artists. Sorry to cut you off, Fred. What were you gonna
No,
say?
I was gonna say, like, I was kind of surprised to see that this is a band coming from Russia, but Russia's kind of weird in that when it comes to their death metal or black metal, there's a Swedish sound, there's a Finnish sound, there's an American death metal sound, even certain parts of Canada have a sound to it. Russia seems to be like just a patchwork of different bands with no consistent sound that I can really pinpoint. Uh, so I found this, it's surprising that this came from Russia, even, especially from like 96 and 98, where these, their first two albums came from, because on one hand, I can't think of any other band that sound that way. On the other hand, so many Russian bands just kind of sound like they came out of a void with no other influences around them. It's bizarre.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if there is a Russian sound, it may be like some kind of folk, a lot of folky kind of things come out of there.
Maybe, yeah. For the more black metal stuff, for death metal, like I can't put my finger on it. It's just all over the place. And
Oh yeah, it's totally varied. You get tech stuff, you get something like this. Yeah, it's kind of weird.
have you guys this kind of reminded me of a band also from Russia called Great Sorrow. You guys ever heard of that one?
No, never heard of them.
no, I
So
haven't either.
that was a cool death doom album. Well, the first album, anyways. I haven't heard the ones that came after. The first one's called Maze of Doom.
Oh yeah, you mentioned that on the
Politics,
last
I really
episode that
like that
doesn't
album.
exist.
Yeah. And yeah, we talked about how messed up the album cover is, because it looks like it's the cover for, or like, you know, the preview screen on an old VHS tape.
Yeah, it looks like like a Gamma Ray album cover or something.
Yeah. But that's a weird album, and you know what? Metal Archives has one review on it for 46%. That's bullshit.
You know what Mental Home actually did remind me of? It reminded me of another band called God's Tower, if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah,
Oh,
I can
yeah,
see
yeah.
that.
The vocals aren't as goofy as God's Tower, but like they kind of have this 90s idea of what slow heavy metal is, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of the same vibes with God's Tower, the Turns album, and the two Mental Home albums.
And
There's
another one it
similar
reminded me
videos.
of was a Norwegian black metal band that didn't exist for very long called Suffering. They released one album, I want to say 93 or 94, called Sowing the Seeds of Suffering. And it's a bit of a repetitive album. It doesn't really pick up much speed, but I've always described that album as dissection on like one third the speed. Um, they don't have any real keyboards in that album, so there's not. It doesn't have that same gothic, mystic sort of sound that Mental Home did. But to Paul's point, Sowing the Seeds is very, very lead oriented. So when I was listening to Mental Home, specifically Black Arts, that really brought to mind Suffering, because that's a band that's actually stuck with me quite a bit. Like, it sounds nothing like the rest of the Norwegian bands, and that it's a really good album.
It looks cool. I'm looking at the album cover. I've never heard of them before.
Yeah,
I mean,
me
that's
either.
what, yeah, that's what is kind of cool. It's just like there really is an endless slew of just stuff from the night, like especially the late '90s. I feel like that's pretty much like unexplored for a lot of people, because you know you start getting
Yeah.
into this stuff and you become like an expert on Swedish and Finnish death metal, and then everybody kind of knows black metal. But there's something about this genre, like the gothic stuff or the doom stuff, that it kind of eludes a lot of people, and it doesn't really get very much attention. But there's some gems in there, like Scald or something like that, you know.
Thorns of the Carrion. Oh,
Oh yeah, they're pretty brutal. I remember them.
the first album, Gardens of Dead Winter, is fairly like straightforward death doom, but that second album, Scarlet Tapestry, is just it's gothic. It's there's a lot going on in that album, but it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard that one. I'm looking at what I've listened to. It was the first one, the Dead Winter album.
Yeah,
I remember that one being like kind of trying to be an epic doom thing, but coming off as too much of a brutal death metal band, if that makes sense. It's kind of too brutal for what it wants to be doing.
yeah.
It feels like.
That's absolutely fair. The second album is much more balanced. They pull it off on there.
I'll have
Gardens
to
of
check that one
Midwinter, I
out.
listened to it more as just a straight up heavy death doom and just leaving it at that. Otherwise, you're not going to hear what you're looking for. But Scarlet Tapestry is depressing as hell.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the similar artists below Thorns of the Carrion. Who do we got here? We have Morgion. They're pretty good.
Oh
Saturnus.
yeah.
I never got Saturnus. I thought they were boring. Sorry. Saturnus and Estuary of Calamity. I remember they're being good. I think it's like same members of this band. And Morning Beloved, if you ever heard of that. That's like more of a dark wave kind of version of this Death Doom stuff. Kind of like Decoria from Finland or something.
Yeah. No, overall, Death Doom with a more gothic sound is not something I've ventured too far into, which kind of sucks because a lot of them wind up being really good.
Yeah, I feel like once that death and black metal kind of blur with more of that doom sound in it, where I think makes it more akin to like dark metal releases, because it's throwing a wrench into the gears and kind of slowing it down, not really relying on speed as death metal and black metal sometimes do, and sort of in a happy medium between those genres and like funeral doom, where it just I definitely have to be in a place to sit through a whole album, let alone just a song of something that's like 15 minutes long, where these are kind of like short bites, and it definitely gives me a one-sided thing I'm looking for bands and albums that I like. It's like just really highly melodic, and the other half is just a bit more, I guess, intricate, because this one, it seemed to be more about just repeating these sort of melodic lines over and over again, even though they did have some interstitial riffs in between it. But you can clearly see like the songwriting and like how many counts are going to do this, go into the next one, and then they'll bring it back. I think like the first song, they come back to that riff like I think 3 or 4 times along the 7 minutes, and I'm sure that they bring back other parts. But I'm talking about that one main opening riff. I think they bring it back like 4 times. So I feel like it's in that medium of, Funeral Doom will play the same riff, but it'll span over like 2 minutes, whereas like these guys are going in between different riffs and arrangements and songs, but also being like really melodic with it. And I think the vocal placements and the bass parts, especially when they do like naturally pop up, I have to like raise my volume a bit to listen to when it does peak out. But whenever I hear it, it's always doing something really intricate that I like in this album.
Yeah,
I heard this one more as a shit. I was thinking, who's going to talk first, me or Fred? Go ahead, Fred.
No, I was gonna say I heard the Funeral Doom in there. I like that influence. It's I like it when bands integrate Funeral Doom into their sound, because Funeral Doom as a genre, I have to really be in the mood to hear a full album of Funeral Doom, and it's not super often. And I'll always default to the same couple of bands too, because it's not a lot of bands can pull it off as well as I'd like. But when bands like include it into their general sound, then it doesn't feel as daunting to listen to. And Mental Home pulled it off really well.
Yeah, it's very one-sided. It's not very contrasted music, but they're like on a really high part of the spectrum of like, I don't know. At points, it feels like kind of just like art to me of what they're doing. But
Black art.
What were you gonna say, Jeff?
I don't know. Oh, I think I was going to say something about what Fred was talking about, like coming back to the same funeral do bands. It is true. Like there's only a couple that I actually go back to. Esoteric would be one, and they're Gothin, and this other one from Finland. I don't know if you guys have heard of. They're called Colosseum. It's a lot of keyboards in it, but it's actually pretty good stuff.
I thought you were gonna say skepticism.
Oh, them too. Them too. I forgot them. Yeah, I love Skepticism. Alloy is good. That album.
What about Funeral from Norway?
Uh, I've listened to them before. I don't remember if I actually like them too much. Isn't it like mostly just girl vocals? And there's like a leaf on the album cover with like some lady.
Yeah, that's Tragedies, their first album. So that one does have a woman singing, and so does I think one or two albums after that. But their first EP, I think it was just an EP, Tristesse, which might have been a demo originally. That is death vocals, and I think sung male vocals. I don't think there's a woman on there anywhere.
I always thought
That
this.
one, that
Yeah,
one's
I always
heavy
thought this
as
would be
balls.
interesting. I always thought it would be interesting if they didn't have the female vocals, but I've never heard this demo before, the '93 one.
Yeah, so Wild Rags reissued it like a year later on CD, um, and it's been reissued a few times since then. I think there's a compilation that has the first album and that demo on it too. Um, so I mean, if the girl vocals of Tragedies isn't for you, I get it. They're kind of divisive, but Tristesse, like if you like Thurgathon, Skepticism, the usual suspects, I think there's no reason for you not to like Tristesse. For me, that's one of the cornerstones of Funeral Doom. It's such a insanely oppressive recording. Like it's a very, I mean, Funeral describes it really well.
Yeah, it's not girl vocals in general because I usually love women vocalists. It's just those specific ones on Tragedies. Like I was just thinking of, I think they're called Elbereth. Am I thinking of this right band? From Spain? Yeah, yeah. Elbereth from Spain. You ever heard of them?
No, I don't think so.
They start off as like Entombed Worship in '92, and then by '95 they're straight up like alt rock, goth rock, kind of a little bit death metal-ish. They almost sound like ex Hoarder at times, but with the female vocal. It was off Witch Hunt
Oh,
Records. It's
weird.
actually pretty cool. I was gonna say too, a lot of this like gothic kind of death metal that's coming out in, maybe the earliest 92, 91, I don't know. But it's kind of a weird thing. It's almost like a post death metal kind of genre, even before that, everything is kind of developing. Even before like a band like Christian or Hate Eternal is like really getting their shit together. I was listening to that band Paroxysm we were talking about a few weeks ago, and
Yeah.
in an interview they call themselves post death metal, and this is in '93. That people are already stepping away from the like savage brutality of shit like Monstrosity and some of this other, maybe even the Swedish stuff like Nirvana 2002 or something. The idea that people are already trying to move the genre forward, and it seemed like it wasn't that successful in a lot of ways, just because this genre really isn't that accessible, and even metal people don't really get it or don't really like it. You know what I mean?
Well, that's what made the late '90s kind of a dark age for death metal, I think, because so many of the bands that started and kind of defined death metal as we know it kind of just moved on and tried something different. And then in like the early to mid 2000s, we had this revival of old school death metal. It's almost like all those bands went, "Whoops, that was a mistake. We're not doing that again. Let's go back to what we used to do." And I mean, like you have Grave, Dismember, you have Entombed, like all these bands that shifted their sound away from what they started doing, and then it was kind of a a revolt against that almost, and bands just like doubled down on uh, that original death metal sound and wanted to just bring that back. I mean, some of them didn't come back. I mean, Samael and Tiamat, just, like they kept running with what they had, and that's fine, right? But I think the genre as a whole just kind of revolted against that and just wanted to go back to the roots. And I think we've doubled down pretty hard on that because their old school death metal is still very much a thing.
Yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I'm honestly kind of tired of that. This the revival has been going on since what, like 2004?
Yeah,
It feels like it's been a
for me,
really
the
long
band
time.
the band that really kind of brought it back was Repugnant.
Yeah,
Like when
and
they
Repugnant
when
was
they
good.
dropped, oh no, they were great. But when they dropped Epitome of Darkness, that was for me the like thing that kickstarted old school death metal as a thing, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, the first one I heard revival wise, I mean, I'm kind of late to the game, but Morbus Kron's first album was like one of the first revival bands that I heard, and I thought they were great. I mean, you have something that sounds like a psychedelic autopsy, and then you got Nicky Anderson's little brother on vocals, so that
Yeah,
was awesome. I loved that.
yeah,
And
no, those.
Repugnant is that's the guy from Ghost, isn't it?
Yeah,
I liked
yeah,
the
it
first
is.
Ghost album when it
I
came
don't.
out. No, you didn't like it?
I just remember when it first came out, people like legitimately didn't know who was actually behind it. And I was at a show once, and this guy was telling me, you gotta check out Ghost. They're really good black metal. And I'm like, finally, I listened to it. I'm like, what was this guy listening to? But this guy was convinced that Varg was behind it. I'm like,
Oh, that's weird.
no.
That'd be very
Have you
strange.
heard? Have you heard any of Varg's work before? Because no.
Yeah. Yeah, I heard them on XM. I like them. They kind of reminded me of Coven or like the Shocking Blue almost. They sounded like one of those like mid '60s
It's like a psych rock band.
yeah, like a site like kind of like a cult psych rock band like Tomorrow's Gift or something like that. It straight up does sound like that. It doesn't sound like anything but like a cult psych rock from the '60s. I don't know how anybody would confuse it with anything else. It doesn't sound like Merciful Fate because I remember that was a big thing everybody was talking about. Doesn't sound like Merciful Fate at all.
And yeah, if you look them up on Metal Archives, Merciful Fate is like the number one band that they're compared to.
Is Ghost even on Metal Archives? I thought they don't
They
allow
are.
stuff that's. But Anal Cunt is not on Metal Archives.
Oh, they're not?
No, I don't think so. I remember they're not allowed. No, they're not allowed.
Weird. There's some bizarre exceptions to the rules, and then some bizarre non-exceptions that should be exceptions.
Uh, what are bizarre exceptions? No, I was looking up Kiss to see if they were on there.
No, but like some of the dungeon synth bands that were associated with black metal
Oh
wound up
yeah,
on Metal Archives, like Mortis and what's the other one?
Thin Lizzy's on here.
Arcana's on there, and there's no metal. Dark Sanctuary, I think, is still on there, and there's no metal to any of them, but they keep them on there because they were on there.
Bro,
I don't know.
AC/DC's on here.
Are they really?
Nah, just kidding.
Oh, Thin Lizzy's on here. I'm looking at him right now.
There you go.
I was thinking like this has to be one of the earliest, like as far as the releases go. I'm looking at Thin Lizzy. They have a single in 1970. Is that like the earliest thing, the earliest release that Metal Archives has?
Nah, because
No?
bands like April 1 were around earlier.
Is
Not
April Wine on here?
Not April 1. Flower Traveling Band.
Oh, are they on here?
I think so.
Well, Flower Traveling Band, that's, I think they came out with an album in '70, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Nah, same year. Flower Traveling Band and Thin Lizzy, same year, 1970. That's crazy. It's a psychedelic hard rock heavy metal. I mean, I get that. They had some like really Sabbathy sounding stuff on that Satori album.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. I didn't know you like that kind of stuff. I like a lot of the 70s B rated bands.
I don't really listen to it much. It's kind of
Oh,
more of a knowledge thing without really needing to listen to it. Because they're bands that I
oh.
like. I appreciate where they came from. I appreciate their influence in metal. But the thing is, it's not a sound I crave to hear very often. So, like, I know about Flower Travel and Band and bands in that realm, but if you ask me to tell you about any of their given albums, I probably can't tell you a whole lot because it's just not something
Oh,
I
okay.
venture into very
All
often.
right. I think we might as well just end it here then. No, just kidding.
Whoa! I
Oh,
was
but
gonna
that,
say,
that's crazy. I didn't realize that there was, these type of bands on Metal Archives either. They got fucking
yeah, they go back pretty far. Some of them.
Lucifer's Friends, Sir Lord Baltimore,
Sir Lord Baltimore's on there. I love Sir Lord Baltimore. You ever heard of them, Fred?
Nope.
Bang.
They're like Led Zeppelin, but on fucking crack, dude. You know how Halloween was described as like Iron Maiden on speed. It's kind of like that. It's like
They
Led
even got
Zeppelin, but on
Budgie on
fucking
here.
speed. Well, Budgie's awesome. You know Budgie?
Yeah, I had a budgie.
Yeah, they. I think Metallica covered them or something.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
there is a lineage between progressive rock and metal. I think Jeff Wagner, when he wrote that book, Mean Deviation, he was,
love
putting
Jeff
that theory
Wagner.
together. He was saying like they're both offshoots of classic rock, progressive rock and metal from their origins, not so much going too bluesy, which is where rock sort of came from. They're exploring different ideas and yeah, so that makes a lot of sense to me actually.
Yeah, and like all uh, these more progressive rock bands, they all had elements of metal into them, right? And I don't think it's fair to say that Black Sabbath was the one that tied them all together, but they're the ones that did it the most prominently, right? I don't know if it was right place, right time, or whatever, but they're the ones that made everyone realize, oh, this can be a lot more than just prog rock, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, me and Paul were talking about this a while ago. We were talking about like, okay, so Sabbath is supposedly the first metal band, but if you look at the time between Black Sabbath and say like Venom's Welcome to Hell, during that like almost 10-year gap, there really isn't shit that is extreme or evil. Like Venom, I think, love them or hate them, they have a lot of importance with like just being fucking like really a heavy fucking metal band and like brutal. They're like the first brutal band. Who is there besides them that's like comes between Sabbath and fucking Venom? Is there anything that's even remotely brutal? Or is it just all
Motorhead.
this like kind of party rock like Thin Lizzy and Budgie and all the kinds of stuff we're talking about? You got prog and shit in between, but you don't really have
It's
anything
Motorhead for
evil
sure.
metal. That's
I think
nuts.
I think Motorhead were right in there because
Yeah, you know what? You're right about that.
if you listen to Venom, it's basically Motorhead with harsher vocals.
Yeah, it is. And the riffs are a little more evil, but I get that. Motorhead's riffs are kind of fucking evil, though. They're kind of like dissonant in a way. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah, even
no,
something
and
like
that's the,
Overkill from fucking Motorhead.
that's the
Insane.
thing that cracks me up when you had, and this was more common back in like the 2000s than it is now, but people who were into black metal really didn't want to have anything to do with other types of metal, and they'd like recoil at Motorhead because that's not black metal. But you know what? The line from Motorhead to Venom to Bathory is a very, very short one, and how you can listen to bands like that without hearing Motorhead, I have no idea. Like it's so obvious.
Yeah, it is obvious. You're right about that. Bathory is Motorhead with worse production and like harsh vocals.
Yeah,
That's
especially that first one. Like it's painted all over it.
yeah. It's like Motorhead didn't even try to. It's like they didn't even try to become some kind of mainstream band. It's super fucking dissonant the way, and it's almost hypnotic too. It's like the way Discharge is hypnotic, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Discharge, another band I know about, but have not ventured too far into.
Oh, same. I like some punk, but yeah, Discharge never really got into it much. I like that first
It's
Descendants
funny
album.
because like I've appreciation for all these bands, but like my real passion is extreme metal. So like I'll know about, like we talked about, Flower Traveling Band and all these other bands, but it's an appreciation so much, and as much as I appreciate them, doesn't mean I need to hear them very often, which sounds
I get
terrible,
you.
but
No, no. I mean, you like what you like. I get it. And especially as we kind of get older and come into more of what we're actually interested in hearing, you know, because I was big into a lot of the '70s stuff, like in high school and a little bit after. You know, I couldn't get enough of this stuff, and now I kind of never go back to it unless it's like, you know, like a fucking favorite song that I like. But I'm never going back to these albums and like, man, I need to listen to some fucking blues rock album that from '71. No thanks, not that interesting, don't care.
Yeah, I'd rather
yeah.
listen to someone talk about music than listen to music.
I kind of get that. I mean, in some cases, I mean, the few things I've been listening to, I've been really listening to. We've been listening to CKY a lot and Paroxysm a lot. How do you feel about CKY? You like them? I think they're the perfect rock band.
I think they're the
I
best rock band.
honestly don't know much about them, but there is a song of theirs that I know and really like. It's like the movie Drive-In Hi-Fi or something.
Oh yeah, man, that song is so good. That's like the one
That's
that
it.
almost is like a disco song.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great song.
Yeah, that song is so good. I think that was left over from one of the singers' like old bands. You know anything about this guy, Darren Miller, CKY? He did Foreign Objects.
No, like when it comes to CKY, I know more about the videos than I do their actual music.
Yeah, I had those when I was a kid too. Those were awesome. But I
Precursor to
think,
Jackass.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I kind of prefer it to Jackass, honestly. I mean, it's there's no commercialism there. It's just like skateboarding guys making, just like making videos on their own volition.
I love all of it.
Yeah, I think we were talking last time about Haggard. I was saying in the intro of the movie, they have Ryan Dunn running, and the background music is "Life Demise" by Unanimated. That was a good choice. Oh, I was gonna say, Fred, you should check out their band, their old band, the guys from CKY, Foreign Objects. It's like, man, it's kind of nuts. It's like atheist or something. It's like some kind of tech death thrash
Really?
thing. Yeah, it's really nuts.
Did they
Foreign
release any
Objects.
albums or?
Yeah, the album is called "The Undiscovered Numbers and Colors," and it's got like a
Oh,
pi symbol on it.
okay.
It's
Weird.
it's excellent stuff. Like I come back to it all the time.
Huh.
Of course, they're not
Oh,
on
yeah.
Metal Archives though.
Who, Foreign Objects?
Yeah,
That is so stupid.
I'll add them right now.
I'll add them right now. Nice. I've been listening to a little Pekeni, and actually listened to some Impetigo today since Radio Free Innsmouth covered them.
Ooh.
Forgot how good they were, man. So
Yeah,
fucking
they're
good.
they're great.
Breakfast at the Manchester Morgue. I love. I even love that video with the. What the hell is that? City of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead 2 or some shit.
Jane
just
Fonda
fucking-
sucks.
I just fucking hate people, man.
Yeah, I just fucking hate people, man. It's like, don't you try to fuck with me, man.
No, they were great. I just I got a copy of I'm gonna pronounce this wrong, but O Agios Pethane from Blood about a week ago. I've known the band for a long time, but I've only ever owned a split. So I finally have one of their albums in my collection. It's like they're such a good band.
Oh,
yeah.
yeah.
For the longest time, I only knew Impulse to Destroy, but even then, it's super interesting death grind. It's not even grindcore. It's like more on the. It is more on the death metal side. I always felt like there was a big, like a big dividing line between good grindcore and then just like crust punk stuff. You know,
Yeah.
you got like Blood and Repulsion and Carcass on one side, even though Carcass were like hippie dippy whatever, you know. But they had an awesome sound, and you know, it's kind of crazy too that Carcass is actually super fucking important too. It, you know, that's a whole nother thing, but Carcass is like holy shit. 1988, the flesh ripping Sonic Torment,
Yep.
bruh, that like kickstarts everything. That's like
Yep.
where the Swedish guys get their sound. Holy shnikes.
Yeah. Well, that and Terrorizer and Repulsion, and to a degree, Master too, right? Because they had a very streamlined, simple sound to them that, like, at times reminds me of grindcore too.
Well, Deathstrike is like slightly before Master, isn't it? Isn't that
They
85?
ran parallel. I mean,
Did they?
Funeral Bitch, Master, and Deathstroke were kind of
Yeah,
all
yeah. The Funeral
the
Bitch, all
same
that stuff
thing.
is, it's crazy. It's like almost punk, but it's super fucking metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that fucking album. Fucking Death. That's the name of it. I love that
Yep.
thing.
And this is American. This is related to Terrorizer and Nausea, Majesty. Uh,
I don't think I've
they
heard of them.
they released a demo in '87 called Bestial Vomit, and
I've heard of
it's
them, never heard them.
yeah, and it's they're usually classed as thrash, like death thrash sort of thing, but it's there's a lot of grind in there. Like they became Nausea basically, right? So like everything that their sound came from is on there, and there's they actually reissued that stuff a few years ago, and there was a second demo, and but there's a rehearsal on there as well. That's a joint rehearsal with Terrorizer. But it's a really cool listen, especially Bestial Vomit. It's short, it's savage, it's grindy, it's a sick recording.
Did you ever hear the rumor that they told the guys from Terrorizer they showed Pete Sandoval like a demo of a band with a drum machine, and they told him it was a drummer, and he tried to beat it like on his own, and then he ended up like beating the drum machine. But wait, what? Yeah, they told him it wasn't, but he ended up beating something like that. I heard that from an old band member.
Yeah, I remember hearing something along those lines where he was upset that there was someone faster than him, and he just
Yeah,
practiced until he was able to drum faster than that.
yeah. I actually have
I
a
don't know if
meme.
it's true or not, but it's fun.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've heard that before. I actually have a meme right here on my Facebook. It's got a picture of a Grim Reaper flipping you off, and it says, "I used to be a huge Morbid Angel fan until Pete Sandoval fucked my mom in '96."
Oh man, that's messed up.
Any thoughts, Paul? Yeah, we
On
could
that.
stop there. That would actually be a good one. Pete Sandoval fucked my mom in '96.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye, bye.
Any fucking last thoughts on this album?
Last thoughts on this album. You guys go ahead. You guys go ahead.
Go ahead, Fred.
Oh, jeez. Um, I just think it was a pleasant surprise. Like I said, I've dug into Russian black and death metal, especially from the '90s, quite a bit, and I never came across these guys. And hearing something that was this unique, I guess, was refreshing. And I wouldn't be surprised if I start tracking these guys down. Like that, these guys deserve to be in my collection.
Yeah, it was actually pretty funny when I mentioned this, album that we're gonna cover. I believe last week or the week before, I went to this local metal shop, around me and Dan, and I happened to
Dark Realm.
Dark Realm, and I happened to pick up their third album from Mental Home, which was actually released through Century Media. So They
Oh.
should have been a lot more attention to these guys, but I think just the sound that they were, originally coming with and evolving to, it's just not what people were looking for or listening to. But it's exactly something that's up my alley that I come back to, every now and again just to scratch that itch, especially with something so melodic and mid-paced, um, and especially with those lazy vocals. And I love this album for exactly what it is, and it's always going to be there for when I need it.
So that third one, is that a huge deviation from the first two, or?
No.
No, it sounds
No.
pretty much the same. I think between the albums, the first and the second have probably I don't want to say biggest change, but they sound the most different.
Right.
Because I know they have a fourth album, but I haven't even checked into that either. But Dan, you got anything?
Yeah, Fred, you know that record shop Paul was just talking about, what is it, Dark Realm? Yeah, Dark Realm Records. You ever heard of that?
No. No, I haven't.
It's like maybe 10, what is it, like 5 miles away from us?
Yeah,
Yeah, you know who runs that? It's the fucking brothers from Sadistic Intent, is who it is.
Oh, Dark Realm. I thought you said Dark Room.
No,
Dark Realm. I know
Dark
Dark
Realm.
Realm. Yeah.
Yeah, you go in there and they'll just fucking, like, every time I go in there, there's nobody in there. And it's, I forget which brother it is, but one of the guys is in there and he'll just talk to you for fucking ever.
Yeah.
But he's a really
I believe
cool
it. They've released
got,
some
like-
cool stuff too.
What's that?
They've released some cool stuff too.
Hmm.
Like, I have an album from Draconis. The Overlords of the Graying Dawn. It's like an American black death metal sort of thing. It's actually really
Sounds
cool.
familiar. Yeah, it sounds familiar.
It's a
Yeah,
really
they have
awkwardly
a,
drawn cover.
They have an original poster of of Nihilus Drowned, or is it Entombed? Entombed's Drowned EP. It's like signed by all the guys. It was from like 90s. What the hell? When does that come out? 92 or 93 or something? 91? When does Drowned come out? Does anybody know?
nope.
Drowned from.
From Entombed.
Oh.
Or was it fucking Nihilus? It's the same.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I thought it was been like.
Oh,
what,
yeah.
89?
Okay. Holy shit, 89. Yeah, they have a poster of that, like, signed by all the guys. That's one of their cool, like, little relics in there.
Yeah, they got a lot just lined up in there.
I just found
I
the
bought a-
cover to Drown confusing because the guy's like.
He's not drowning.
So-
He's, like, burning, but he's, like,
Yeah, he's
in
on
a lake.
fire.
Yeah, he's on fire in a lake or something.
Guys, I don't think he did this right.
That's where I actually found out who Branacald was, just searching through their CDs.
Branacald?
Yeah. Because there's no a lot of their covers there isn't any names on it. I think it was called the Key to something, Key to Colosseum. It's like the one with a Viking ship on it.
Cosm Hall?
Yeah, something like that. I bought that, and then I bought a band called End from Greece. They're okay. They're like kind of Black Death-ish.
Branacald is one of my favorite black metal bands.
Yeah, I was just
Especially, Storm Height is just awesome.
yeah, Stormhide is awesome. Yeah, I was dicking around with the guitar last night, and I came up with a Branacald-esque riff, one of those like riffs that kind of never has to end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah,
I could
mental.
I could listen to Storm Ride on repeat for a while. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, that one is
Mental
really
Home.
But yeah,
As we deviate again.
yeah, it's all right. Mental Home. You know, I had never actually heard this album before Paul mentioned it. I heard Veil, and I heard the other one. I felt like this one was, I don't know, the most kind of like uneventful for me. I felt like it kind of didn't do a lot of the things that I wanted it to do. I mean, it's a cool record altogether. Just not one of my the other two I like a lot more because I had known that like like a few years earlier. But it's all right. It's pretty cool. I mean, sorry, but I kind of didn't enjoy it that much. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would.
Yeah, it's definitely one-sided because I know you and I both like melody, but also a lot of dynamic and contrast within albums and songs too.
yeah, I just like the riff. And I feel like this song didn't really have a lot of riffs. And
Yeah,
a lot of the melodies kind of bled in together where a lot of them just felt the same. And there were two like outstanders though. The first song and the song Pagan Freedom. The parts that I really did like on this were the parts that picked up. And there isn't a lot of pickup on this album, but I do like the faster shit that this record does.
Yeah, so I thought it was a bit interesting. They didn't have, you know, riffs and shit. It was more leads and more atmosphere behind those leads.
Yeah, I feel like that guy from Little Nicky. Remember when he's talking to himself in the mirror, and he's like, "There ain't nothing better on a Saturday night than telling the truth." I just had to tell the truth.